Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I'm Chucky2009, and tonight we're going to be doing some 6G pipe welding. Now, 6G is something that a lot of people like to make into a big deal, largely because a lot of the time if you take a certification type program, you'll get a 6G certification, and the theory is that if you can do 6G and get certified in it, then you can also do 2G and 5G and 1G as well for that matter. So 6G is the one that a lot of times people really focus on, at least that's the way it was in my school, and I don't think it's really that hard. I think it's a pretty natural step after 5G. The way I look at it is it's just like 5G, but some nice person raised up the pipe 45 degrees, so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on underneath that pipe. And well, as you can see, I got my workpiece tacked up here, and we're just welding away, putting in the root pass. We got the nice Power Arc 300 from our good friends at Everlast just humming away, and we're going to be running some of the 5P plus 6010 electrodes. And again, I'm basically just going to do the same thing with the root pass I've done on the other two pipe positions we've done so far. This really isn't any different. You can see where things start to get a little bit out of control here. I'll start to introduce a little bit of a whipping motion, but nothing too much, nothing too crazy. And then the keyhole shrieks back up a little bit for me. And I'm trying to do just a straight drag type motion for most things, but I will demonstrate the whip when things start to get a little bit out of control, or maybe other times as well, just because I know it's a really popular technique that a lot of people like as well. But essentially, yeah, I'm set up to run about 80 amps here, and here I'm coming up on my tack weld. I'm just trying to close up our keyhole. I'll ram some metal through where our keyhole used to be just to make sure that I'm getting a good quality tie-in, then I'll go ahead and break the arc on the tack weld. Now here we are coming off the other side. I'll start on the previously deposited tack weld. I'll ram some metal through there, and just like that we got our keyhole to open up. And then we are welding away, working from, I believe, about the 3 o'clock position to the 12 o'clock position. And I'm just going to take my time, try to be as steady as possible, brace yourself on the pipe or whatever if need be. And just, yeah, just for the most part, just drag away like we're doing here all the rest of the way up the pipe. Once we get that welded up, we'll just go ahead and take a look at our finished root. As you can see, it's flat to slightly convex. There's not a lot of build up there. We don't want to go over a 1/16 of an inch, and I don't think we're even close to that, to be honest. But if you look in here, you can see it just lays in there nice and flat. We don't seem to have any kind of undercut or any kind of issues at all related to that. I mean, I think that's a pretty decent looking root. I feel pretty confident that's going to pass our test. Alright, now this is just another portion of the pipe, and as you can see, I got my little ruler here. Yeah, we're not even close to the 1/16 of an inch, even at that little tall section right there. Don't know what happened there, but that's a little bit taller than the rest of the root. Now, if you look to the right of where I've got that ruler, you can see the tie-ins to one of our tack welds here, and again, from the tack weld into the next part of the bead. And you see those two little round circles there that look almost like buttons. Well, that's what we get when we ram the end of the stick electrode through the keyhole or through the puddle once the keyhole has started to close up, and it forces material out the back, gives you those nice little circular motions there, and that's just one way you know you ram some metal through, and now there's metal where there needs to be metal, and we should have a good quality solid tie-in. So once we got our root pass in, of course, I guess we might as well start in with our first pass of 3/32 inch 7018. As you can see, I'm just starting off the bottom of the pipe there, and I'm going to work my way up the side of the pipe. Now, the way I've got this plan to weld it out, we're going to be depositing about 6 layers into this pipe. We got our root pass, we got 4 fill layers, and then we got our cover pass on top of that. And yeah, so we're just starting out with the 3/32 inch stick electrodes. You can see I bumped up our amperage just a little bit, and I'm just doing my best to run a short arc to keep things under control. I'm using a slight side to side, kind of almost like a wiggle motion here, if you will, to just work to flatten out that puddle and stack the material on the back of our weld joint where it needs to go, as opposed to having it on our bevel. Because I've said it before and I'll say it again, if you're not really careful about that, you'll cover up those bevel edges really fast, and all of a sudden you're not going to have any more space on the bevels themselves to tie anything into, and you're still going to have a huge void in the center of your weld. So I'm really working hard, doing the best I can to stack that material at the far back of the joint and barely barely touch the sides of our bevels, just tie in on one side here. So this is the second pass of the first fill layer. Again, we're using the 3/32 inch stick electrodes here. And we're just going to work our way up the pipe a little bit more. Now this video and all these videos are kind of a compilation of two different pipes that I welded out, just taking the best arc shots and the best other shots from each of those. But so here we are working from, I believe, about the 6 o'clock position going up to about the 3 o'clock position. And generally, you know, the great thing when you're stick welding is that these electrodes only burn for a rather short amount of time, so you don't really have to position yourself so you can move all the way around the pipe. You just have to position yourself so you can move as far as you can get with one stick electrode, and then obviously you have to stop and switch it out, and you can just reposition yourself then. So we don't have too far to go here, and I'm just tying this into the first fill bead that we placed in here, just trying to fill in that void between that bead and the bevel edge on the other side. We got a nice valley there. We don't have anything that's like steep and sharp and extreme or anything, just kind of a nice void where we can stack in another weld bead. And that's what we got. As you can see, the majority of the bead is in the back of the joint, and we're just barely tied into the bevel edges. We got plenty of space left where we can work to add in our additional fill passes before we sort of crowd ourselves out of there. So here we go, just getting started here, just doing my best to stay steady, brace myself as possible. And now I've gone ahead and cranked things up a little bit heat-wise, and now we're using some of the 1/8 inch Lincoln Excalibur 7018s. This is an electrode that welder really likes to run. And essentially we're doing the same exact thing as we did on our first fill layer, just with a slightly larger electrode, which puts down a slightly larger amount of material, which works to fill in the slightly larger amount of the bevel now that we're further out and those angles are kind of expanding here. So just working my way around here. Again, it's the same exact motion. I'm running a nice short arc to try to keep things under control, and a slight side-to-side motion with that as well, just to work to flatten out that puddle and keep things from getting all convex and nasty on us. And I'm just going to take my time and go slow, do my best I can here, and make sure I'm getting everything clean in between these passes, because we don't really want to have to worry about any kind of trapped slag in there or anything like we did on that one bend test. And yeah, that's the fill layer we just deposited. Again, it should look almost identical to the 3/32 inch layer, except just a little bit larger. And then, with that being said, we are going to start in on our third fill layer. Now, the way I'm going to go about doing this is to just put down two slightly wider beads with the 1/8 inch electrode, since we're filling in a slightly larger space between the bevel edges, because obviously that gets larger the further out the weld joint you go. However, if you wanted to, you could make 3 smaller passes. I'm going to stick to the 2 slightly larger ones. Now, when I mean slightly larger, I mean like not very large at all. Just a little bit bigger than the last ones we put down, just because putting in 2 passes means I don't have to do quite as much cleaning, and that also means that there's less chances that I could work the trap slag, because I'm putting down less weld beads, and it's probably a little bit faster in the long run as well. So we're just welding away with the old power arc here, and we are going to put down our second pass for the third fill layer. Now, generally, especially running the 7018 passes on these types of pipe welds here, it should start to feel pretty similar, and just kind of everything almost feels like it runs together after a while. You know, you're basically doing the same thing. You got the welder set the same way, you're burning the same electrode, you're using the same technique, you know, the short arc and the slight side-to-side motion to keep things under control. And we're just working our way through the layers right now. As you can see, we've finally advanced out to the cover pass, and here I'm just consuming whatever's left of the bevel edge, which hopefully isn't much. Hopefully there's only about a 32nd of an inch to a 16th of an inch there. At most. Any more than that, you really have to stack the metal in to kind of bring things up flush with the face of the pipe. But yeah, now I just fully consumed what remains of our bottom bevel edge, and I'm just going to stack another bead with the same overlap I've used thus far on top of that bead, and just work our way out through the various layers. Now, this is going to be a 4-bead cover pass, at least that's the way that I like to run these things. And normally what I'll do is all 4 passes with the 1/8 inch electrodes, but generally the first 3 beads take up the entire space in the bevel, and the 4th pass basically just ties into the top bevel and fully consumes that bevel edge. But we're almost there with the 3 passes, and generally at the end of these 3 passes, there's not really a whole lot of space left there, you know, just the top of the third pass and the bevel edge, and that's it. So one thing I like to do, if I have the opportunity to, a lot of places won't let you do this, is go back down to running a 3/32 inch electrode. Just deposits a little bit less material, but since there's a little bit less space, I think it really helps the aesthetics of the finished weld. And it's just a little trick. Like I said, a lot of places think it's a waste of time and it doesn't really matter, so they won't let you do it. But if I can do it, then I generally like to do it. And just like that, we are at long last about wrapped up with our cover pass, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is our finished 6G cover pass. Now, as you can see, it's just the 4 stringer beads there. They all seem to tie into each other pretty well. I don't see any undercut. There's not like gaping holes in our weld or anything, so I guess I'm really happy with how that came out, and I can't wait to bend test it. But first, you know, these videos are meant to help people learn how to do what we're doing and sort of give them a head start if you're in some type of an educational program. And weld's the kind of thing you can learn, you know, you can teach yourself in your garage or whatever. There's really no substitute to getting a good quality education in welding. And a lot of the time when people ask me what schools I've seen and what schools I really like and left an impression with me, I like to refer people who are good friends at the Georgia Trade School. They are a team of very, very, very dedicated, passionate instructors. You can tell they genuinely care about their students and their success. They're full of knowledge, and I personally know a number of people who've been to the school and have excellent, excellent, excellent things to say about it. You know, they've left with a number of certifications, both pipe and plate, and gone on to get really good jobs and seem to rave about the place. You know, it's just outside of Atlanta. They've got a beautiful building as well. You know, some welding schools are just like a dingy warehouse with a couple welders. It's nothing like that. It's clean, it's well lit. The people there are very, very friendly, and if you've ever thought about getting an education in welding, it's something that I definitely recommend checking out. And if anybody's interested in that, I'll put some links in the description below. But in the meantime, I'm just going to work on slicing out some of our pipe coupons here. Going to make these about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches wide. We're basically doing the same thing we've done all along. I'll just go ahead and slice out 4 coupons with the plasma cutter here. We're going to be testing 2 of them for the face of the weld and 2 of them for the root of the weld. Once I go ahead and get things sliced out, I'll just take my angle grinder to them. Now, I'm just using some of those Lehigh Valley abrasive flap discs. You know, when I was in school, I used to switch between a hard abrasive wheel and just the flap discs to kind of smooth things off, but now I pretty much just exclusively use the flap discs. It goes pretty fast, and just like that, I got things tacked up on our little bending jig here. I had my doubts about this, to be honest, when I first made this thing, but it seems to work out really, really, really well. And these things seem to get easier and easier and easier to bend the more of them that I do. Maybe I'm getting used to hammering things over like that. But alright, so this is the first weld that we tested. This is obviously a root weld, as you can see. We got a tiny bit of a corner crack that looked like it wanted to open up, but it never did. It's well below within the 1/4 inch allowed for corner cracks on these tests. So I'm going to say that looks pretty good. This is the other root. Hit it with the hammer, but other than that, I'm going to say that looks pretty much perfect. I'm very, very happy with how that came out. It's smooth. You can clearly see where the weld is. There's no defects like popping out from around the weld or within the weld or anything along those lines. And that pretty much just leaves the faces. So we got this one that I also hit with a hammer. And yeah, as you can see, just like that that last root, there's nothing coming out. There's nothing, it doesn't look like it shouldn't be there. It just looks like a plain old-fashioned root weld. So I gotta say I'm really happy with how that came out, and this is the 4th one here. It also appears to be basically perfect. So I gotta say I'm absolutely thrilled with how these coupons came out. I'm really happy with the outcome of this video, and I hope that I got across the fundamentals of what we're trying to do. And I guess this about winds down the last of our entirely stick welding videos on pipe. In the next few videos I produce, we're going to be doing this, but with a TIG root, and that should be a lot of fun. I hope to see you there. And yeah, so I guess now I can go ahead and power down the Everlast PowerArc 300. This is a machine that functioned flawlessly throughout the entirety of our welding adventures with it. It's I think these machines are an awesome bargain for what they are. You know, they're really reliable. They seem exceptionally well made, good fit and finish, and well, they just plain work. So with that being said, I guess that about winds down the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. Best of luck on your pipe welding adventures. Yeehaw.